So in this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to organize a website. This is subject to change. That is, when I develop more as a developer, I'm potentially going to change the way I format my websites. This is like a basic format that I follow. You can follow this if you want. You can develop your own way. You maybe have more of an efficient way to organize your website. And if you do, please let me know in the comments below. But you are not required to follow this format. You could follow any format that you seem suitable. So to begin, I'm going to open up my text editor. I use Atom. Maybe later in the future I can show you guys how to install it. So the whole overarching folder is called video, which is basically the name of my project or the name of my website. And I'm using XAMPP, so I included this within the htdocs folder. If you're using WAMP, it's within the www folder. So to begin, I'm going to open up this file, and this is going to be a very crude, basic format for your website. And to begin with, I'm going to open up an index.php. Index.php is basically your home page of your website, and this is how it should structurally look. We can notice there's no actual hard-coded code in this web page. It's all included from various files, and that's where the organization comes in. So you can see your basic document skeleton with the doc type, the HTML tags, the head tags, the body tags, and some script tags. And all these files are just pushed into this index.php file and then are later generated on your web browser. So within the head tag, I begin with include dbconnect.php. And basically, I store this within my database folder because it's database related. So I dedicate a whole folder for database connections or any kind of database things that I do with PHP. Next, I use includes. An includes folder is basically a folder that contains content that is used across each web page or most web pages. This is so it's easier for you to include various sections of your website without actually retyping your code. So within the includes folder, I created 3 popular or major things that I usually use across each web page, and that being the footer, the header, and the navbar. Again, this is so I don't have to retype the code for the footer or for the navbar for the header. The footer is pretty self-explanatory. That's just the bottom content of your page. It could show whether an about kind of thing about the company you're working with, or maybe an address or a contact information, or anything of that sort. A navbar should be pretty self-explanatory. It's just the thing on the top of the page, usually on the top of the page, unless it's side scrolls from the right or left, depending on who developed your website or the website, and that just navigates to different web pages. The header, that's more of a plug in your HTTP request, such as maybe you want to include your styling, a global CSS file that you use specifically for the includes files. You also include Google Fonts or a jQuery library. So if you're using jQuery across each web page, it's just simple to just include it in one place and then just include this file across each page. So going back to the main page, the index page, the next thing I link in is the styling for that specific page. So usually I create a CSS folder dedicated for each web page, and then create a styling sheet for that page. As you can see here within my CSS folder, I created an index.css file which contains all the styling for the home page. And then I will just repeat this process for each page. Now, if you're not using Sass or any kind of CSS framework, then ignore this part completely. But if you are using Sass, I usually generate a Sass file, and within the Sass file, I create folders for each page. For instance, I made an index folder for the index page. And then within each respective page folder, I create multiple files based on the sections of that site. So for instance, there may be an image slider for the index page, which I have here, and there may be body content. And I would like to separate the CSS from each other. It just helps me to keep organized from what I'm styling and just basically find what I need to look at if there's an issue for later use. And then after I get all the styling done based on these sections, I simply pushed all these Sass files into this main Sass file called index.sass. And just to note, remember that the index.sass file is in the same directory as the index folder. So if you look at the index.sass file, you notice I did something wrong. I should be actually writing index/image slider index/body content. It was just a path issue. If you don't know what I'm doing, just ignore that. And if you're not using Sass, then this is completely irrelevant. But that's how I would organize my Sass files. Next is the body, basically the main content of the page. As you can see, I include the navbar, an image slider, the body content, and then the footer. As I told you before, there's an includes folder, and that includes all the most common styling or scripts or HTML that I use across each web page, and that's within the includes folder. These are the most common things used on each web page. However, an image slider I don't use on every page, so this may be strictly used for the index page. So what I do, I create a pages folder, which is dedicated for each page. And then within the pages folder, I'll create another folder for each web page. So for instance, I created an index folder for the index.php file. And then within the index.php file, I further break up the page into different sections. So I want to keep the body content by itself, and then I want to keep the image slider by itself. That way it's just easier for me to find and look for stuff. Last but not least is my JavaScript. If I'm running any specific JavaScript for this page, I would simply include it at the bottom of the page. It's always best to include your JavaScript at the bottom of the page just to give your document to load before the JavaScript actually starts running. So I would create a JavaScript or a JS folder, and within that JS folder I would just create independent files for each web page. So for instance, I created an index.js file, and then I'll just repeat this process for each web page. So that's basically how I organize my websites or any project that I'm working on. If you're doing a larger website, this is probably not the best way to do it because, as you can tell, if you have multiple pages on your website, then this folder can get really cramped, or even the Sass folder can be really cramped with all this information and it looks more unorganized than usual. However, if you're building a very simple basic website, let's say 5 pages or so, 5 pages or less, this format can work really well. If you're wondering if you could get any of these files, yes you can. They'll be on my GitHub account. There'll be a link in the description and you could download these files and work with them yourself. So that's it for this tutorial. I hope this guys help you organize your websites, hopefully make them better, more neat, and easier to manage when you develop more and more. So if this video helped you in any way possible, please give me a like, or if you have any suggestions on how to organize a website even better, leave the comments down below. I'll see you next time.